And now, your host, Couch Tomato!
Hey, I'm Couch Tomato and I'm joined by
Hulk.
Welcome to Stuff for Movie Buffs. And today we're talking
The most anticipated movies of 2018.
All right, let's get into it. All right, before we actually get into it, a huge thanks to one of our new Patreon supporters, Jesse Black. So I wanted to take that time and acknowledge Jesse. Just a huge thanks. It really means a lot. To our listeners, you could help fund the podcast. Head over to patreon.com/couchtomatofilms. Don't worry if I say that too fast. The link is in the description. Head over to Patreon, pledge $1 or more, and that stuff goes a long way to help support the podcast, equipment for the podcast, software fees, etc., etc. So next week, we have something special planned. We'll be doing a segment on January movies and why they suck. So I'm trying to get every Patreon member to guest star, I guess you could call it, on that episode. Of course, there'll be scheduling conflicts, obviously, but you guys are welcome to send in a recording. So if you are a Patreon supporter, I cannot wait. And if you aren't, it's not too late. Head over to Patreon. Well, head over to Patreon now and support. So that's that. So let's get into this thing. Top 5 most anticipated movies of 2018. You ready to do this, Hope?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, cool. So we'll go from 5 to 1. And these are movies that obviously we're looking forward to. So there doesn't need to be a criteria that's explained. We'll start off with your 5 and I'll jump into mine.
All right, cool. At number 5, I have Incredibles 2. Ever since this sequel announced, I've been so hyped because this was one of the movies.
You mean Incredibles 2 or you talking about Fantastic Four Part 4?
Chill. Incredibles 2.
Now I love the movie, but it is a better version of Fantastic Four.
Yes. Oh, much better. Yeah, like ever since the first one came out, like this is one of like my favorite, animated movies ever. If not if not the favorite, it's kind of close with like Toy Story, the Toy Story movies. But yeah, I love this movie, and ever since like when it first came out, like there was just no announcements for a sequel, and I was just like, I always felt that was weird because not only did I love it, but like majority of the movie going audience loved it as well. So it's just like it was weird to me that they never announced a sequel, and then years went by, and it was just like, oh, they're not doing it. And then I was just like, what? Aren't they doing an Incredibles 2 sequel? And then finally, I think it was like last year or late, was it 2016? They announced like, okay, we're actually coming out with Incredibles 2. So I was just like, okay.
It was early 2016. I just remember they had the poster, but then the trailer came out late 2016.
Okay.
And to be fair, at the beginning, I know Pixar's plans was never to do sequels. They just kind of got suckered into it by Disney.
Yeah.
And they only used the properties that they weren't really so happy about. Like Cars was a hit, but it wasn't a hit like Up was, or like Toy Story was, or like Incredibles were. So I think they tried to stay away from doing sequels of this, but I think it lends itself well to a sequel. I'm curious to see what happens with Jack, so I'm looking forward to it as well. It didn't make my top 5 most anticipated list, however. I'll tell you what showed up for my number 5. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I love heist movies. I love Ocean's 11, so it goes without saying that Ocean's 8 ends up on my list.
Wow.
Yeah, so I love heist movies. Ocean's 11 is the king of all heist movies. My only reservation is that Steve Soderbergh isn't directing, he's producing. And that's the same thing we saw with Ivan Reitman with Ghostbusters. Oh, he's producing. That's the same thing that we saw with, I think Steven Spielberg used to do that a couple times too. Like,
yeah.
No, it wasn't him. It's somebody else, like a J.J. Abrams. Like they give their property to another director and it's like, oh, he's producing this time. And I'm like, well, producing in Hollywood just means if you didn't, actually spend your own money, it just means that you just, okay, they're putting your name on there to draw your audience. A great example of that is Christopher Nolan producing Man of Steel. He had little to nothing to do with that movie.
Yeah.
So,
and Justice League, and you know what I'm saying? Like
his name was still on that? Oh, wow. That man collecting a check for doing nothing.
Yep.
I'm not mad at him. That's why he's not coming out with a movie every year. So he's not directing, he's producing. But then again, after 3 movies, I always feel that it is better that you hand over the franchise to a fresh face. So I'm looking forward to that. And the guy who wrote Pleasantville, you ever saw that movie?
Yeah, I saw that movie.
You ever seen Big? Tom Hanks?
Mm-hmm.
You ever seen a indie picture called Hunger Games?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the guy who wrote those films is the director. So those were good movies. I'd say Pleasantville was actually brilliant. I thought it was a great movie. And that was his directorial debut. So if that's what you're coming out the gate with, I don't think I'm going to be upset, with this. So I like to see them establish this new group of thieves. And you could bet if it's successful, they're going to find a way to merge the actress's storyline with the male storylines from Ocean's 11 through 13 for an ensemble picture, kind of like an Avengers or something. Like, okay, Ocean's, I'm trying to do the math. Well, 13 minus Bernie is 12. So 12 plus 8 is 20. So Ocean's 20 or something, and like some type of ensemble.
Yeah,
film.
and they'll come out 2020.
Oh, they're doing that for
No, I'm just saying.
Okay. I'm like, wow. But yeah, that's my number 5, man. And it looks like Heist is making a comeback because last year you actually had two good heist movies. I believe you had Baby Driver, but Logan Lucky was really good. It's definitely not getting a sequel.
Oh, I gotta check that out.
Yeah, and so let's go on to our number 4.
So that's my number 4, Ocean's 8. Like outside of like the Batman trilogy and the Godfather series, like that's my favorite, trilogy. Like I just fell in love with the first one right off the bat. Like it was just so brilliant, just such a smart movie, and like it had just so many little details. So it's just like it's not a movie, even though it's a heist movie, even though you know what's gonna happen at the end. It's like there's so many little details that you could pay attention to. The comedy, the comedic timing always just hit. So it's just like one of my favorite movies. And then when they announced with this one, I was still hyped, because I like the concept. I like some of the actresses in there. So I was just like, okay, I'm down for it. And, hopefully they can keep some of that with the previous franchise. Some of that, hopefully that magic translates over to it. So got my fingers crossed. I can't wait.
Yeah. And, you mentioned that what's going to happen at the end and you still like it. You don't. If it's your first time seeing those movies, you don't know what's going to happen at the end of any of them. So I thought that was just brilliant. So it's nice to see that.
No. Yeah. I just meant like as a rewatching.
Oh, yeah, it's rewatchable. Definitely, I agree with that part. So we're on the same page with that film. So my number 4 is actually a film called Fantastic Beasts: Crimes of Grindelwald, I believe.
Not surprised.
Yeah. So obviously, Harry Potter is my Star Wars, like the franchise that people grow up with and love. Like, I want this to be the new Harry Potter so bad. I felt like the first film was okay, but that's the same thing with the Sorcerer's Stone or Philosopher's Stone, depending on your country. I felt like the first Harry Potter was slow, but when you get the Chamber of Secrets, it gets dark. But Azkaban is what really kicked off the franchise to me. And that I'm trying to be forgiving with Fantastic Beasts and say, that may be the same situation here. I thought the first movie was good, but it's just introducing us to a lot of the rules in that world. I'm like, all right, I get it. Second film, I expected to get dark, and third film is probably where I expected to be like, okay, strap in. So, I believe it'll be the same thing here. So I'm looking forward to the sequel. And that's going to be a defining moment for Fantastic Beasts, and WB knows that. So either the fans stay or shrug their shoulders and pass on any future movie. So I'm thinking that a former will happen to where I think a lot of fans are probably going to like this movie.
Yeah, I think so. I think it has a good track record, and is Ezra Miller coming back? Like he seemed like a really fan favorite from the first one.
Yeah, I mean, they're setting him up to be the he who shall not be named of this universe.
Got you. All right.
So without any further ado, let me hear your number 4.
My number 4 is kind of like similar to you. Like growing up, like the DC movies have been like my Star Wars. So, but at the same time, it's been such a bad time for them. So like I have Aquaman. coming in. Like I really, I thought Jason Momoa did a good job with Justice League. He's always been a good actor ever since, Game of Thrones, like, with Khal Drogo and all that stuff. Like, he's always been good. And I was like, he finally, got a role where, what I'm saying? Like, he could be prominent. Like, he could actually have his own franchise. So I'm really hyped to see what they do with this character, especially Aquaman, because he's been such a, whatchamacallit? He's not been a beloved character out of comic book heroes, I should say.
He's a laughing stock. It's funny, before the Lego movie, he was the laughing stock of DC.
Yeah.
And now they made it Green Lantern.
Exactly. Well deserved, by the way, ever since that Ryan Reynolds movie. But yeah, it's like, hopefully this one can, help push the DC universe, back into the plus column, especially with whatever everything that happened with Justice League, financially. So we'll see what happens.
I hold out hope. I always want a movie to be successful. I never go in with, ill will. However, what water is to DC is the same thing as what space is to Marvel. Let me explain. The reason that they were so frightened with Guardians of the Galaxy is because whenever you need to stretch your universe, you add space into it. Space just gives you an opportunity to pop, like new characters could pop up on it anywhere because it's not limited. That's why Star Wars lends itself the best to spinoffs. It's just because they've already gone galactic. And prior to Guardians of the Galaxy, Marvel didn't have that. So now it's like, okay, we've established our spaces, we've established our movies as this space opera to where we could pull characters out of anywhere. And water could do the same for DC. However, I just don't know if there's enough stuff there. Like even in the Justice League movie, it just seems like they're like a little tribe living in a small section cut off of the water. It doesn't seem like a lost city of Atlantis or anything. So I'm anxious to see what they do with it. However, I'm keeping reservations until I could see a trailer. But I'll keep my fingers crossed for you because I know what that franchise will mean to you. So go ahead.
Just to add one more thing, my only hope is because there's been a lot of issues with what got cut as far as Zack Snyder, and they said a lot of Atlantis got cut. They said because Willem Dafoe, his character was supposed to be in the movie,
I know that part.
He got cut. Yeah, so it's just like maybe there's more to Atlantis, but like you said, it does like the way they build that world. It kind of felt like it was just like some little part of the ocean.
Yeah, it's like a park. It's like it's the lost park of Atlantis. Like, hey man, let's go to my park real quick. It's like an 1,800 square foot situation. I'm just like,
it seemed like it was like a pool. Like just some pool somewhere.
I'm like, exactly. That's a better example. Just, hey man, we're in the deep end, man. So that's gonna. I don't know if I could watch that for 2 hours, but let's jump into this number 3 thing. So I'll let you.
That was my number 3.
What was your number 3?
That was my number 3, Aquaman.
Oh, okay. So it's my number. Oh, it's my number 3. All right, There we go. All right, so I'm going with Creed 2.
Dang, that's a good one.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't even know if this film is coming out in 2018. But as of now, all signs point to it. I know from the official Rocky Balboa account, they've posted. He posted a picture that said December 25th, but he said they're looking for a Thanksgiving release. So that was a little confusing. Yeah. So as of now, they've released statements that they're pushing for November of this year. Christmas is also a possibility. I think the last film wrapped up production late as well. So this is the same thing that happened with Creed 1. They wrapped up production late, and it was still packaged for fall of that year. It was either 2015, I believe, or 2015.
I think it was 15. I think it was like late. Yeah.
It was 2015. So they could do the same here. Part 1 was one of my favorite movies of 2015. I think Ryan, the director, he's that deal, and I'm looking forward to more of his work. Unfortunately, he's not directing this film. It's another guy named Stephen Caple Jr., and he hasn't done any big pictures, but neither did Ryan at the time. Fruitvale Station was a small film, and I'm just glad Stallone isn't directing because that was a possibility, and he took it off of the table. Like, I just felt like Stallone, I thought deserved Didn't he get an Oscar nomination?
I want to say so. I think so.
If he didn't, he deserved it. I don't know if he deserved to win that year. It was just so much stuff that came out, I believe. But yeah, like I'm like, okay, Stallone is really taking the acting stuff serious, because that reminds you, okay, this was why this guy's a star. But when it came to the Rocky franchise, the same thing that I said about Ocean's 11 through 13, when somebody's directed more than 3 films, it's time to pass the keys over, just because they're limited in their imagination on what they could do with the franchise. And I love Rocky 1, Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4, even one of the few people who like Rocky 5, you know, so it's like, and love Balboa, love Creed. So I love the franchise. I just felt like I don't want to see it go in that cartoony route, because I think that's what Stallone will do. And they're even bringing back Drago for this. So if you don't find a director who's going to keep it grounded in reality, you could easily see another blood match like the fake stuff that was happening in Rocky 4. I mean, that's that. Anything to add for Creed, or you ready to move on to number 2?
Yeah, I just really hope that they make it, because I really feel like this, you know, should be around during Oscar season. You know what I'm saying? Because just because like Creed, like you said, what Wes Stallone did with part 1 was just amazing. Like so I really hope like they are able to get this out in time. Because like you said, it's been kind of weird. Because I remember last year, they were trying to push this out last year too. But then I guess they switched the director. And then I guess, you know, like with everything, like they just said, okay, we're going to come out 2018. But now they still don't even have like the definitive date. So hopefully like they're able to knock that down.
Yeah, everything's coming late. But with Creed, I wouldn't be surprised if they filmed that film in like 2 weeks. Because I just remember the same thing happening with Creed, and that's why I thought it was going to be whack. I'm like, they still doing production on this movie? This movie is scheduled to come out in like 3 months. Yeah. It was really late. I'm probably exaggerating on how late that was, but I just remember them wrapping up production, and it was really late in the process, and they still got the movie packaged in time for the fall, and it was great.
Yeah.
So,
and Stallone did get Oscar nom, supporting actor.
Hey, who did he lose to?
Good question. I gotta look that up.
All right. So as we do that, I'll look it up, and then how about you move on to your number 2?
All right, number 2. This is another Michael B. Jordan than Black Panther. It's funny because we've had, I guess, black heroes before in a way.
Your Meteor Mans and your Nino Browns.
Yeah, and like I guess Blade.
Nino Brown wasn't a hero.
Blade, you know, Shaft was like an anti-hero. But with this one, especially like with Marvel's success and everything that's happened over like the past, you know, decade plus now, you know, with Panther coming out, I think like it's going to be a huge event. You know, it's coming out, you know, my birthday, February 16th, you know, Black History Month. Like, I just think it's going to be an event film for the culture, as they say. Everything I've seen so far, as far as trailers, TV spots, the cast is amazing. Like I really
they just announced the soundtrack too.
Yes, with Kendrick, you know, doing the soundtrack. I just think it's gonna be huge, and it's especially, you know, Marvel really does no wrong. So it's just like I really feel like, okay, this is gonna be a hit. Like it has to be, you know, on my list. So I definitely have it at number 2.
All right, so I'll get into my number 2, and I'll do a call back. Supporting actors were Mark Ruffalo for Spotlight, Tom Hardy for The Revenant, Christian Bale for The Big Short, Mark Rylance for Bridge of Spies, Sylvester Stallone for Creed, and he lost to Mark for Bridge of Spies. I didn't see Spotlight or Bridge of Spies, so I don't know. Like, out of the movies that I did see, Sly probably deserved that one, but
yeah, he did. Don't get me wrong, Bridge of Spies was a good movie, but his performance is better than
Now that was some payback. They would the Academy is always like, all right, you want to do movies like Demolition Man, and they're getting payback for that.
Yo, Rambo?
You want to do movies like Copland? All right. What, you're at Rambo 16 now, huh?
We saw Dread. Like, don't get
yeah. So yeah, we didn't forget about that. That's how they got Eddie Murphy. Like, he was supposed to win that year, and then he started doing movies like Norbert, and it was like, oh, you think it's funny? Think it's a joke? Okay. So so we're at number 2, and I agree with you, man. I'm gonna push and say Black Panther, loved Creed, It's only natural for this to be my most anticipated movie of the year because it has the star of Creed and the director of Creed. So I think this is the film that's going to dispel the notion that Hollywood can't make profitable movies with a diverse cast. So after this, you're going to see the blackest movie ever. It's going to be like the 70s. You know, like when Hollywood overdoses on everything, they're going to just make, hey, an all black cast for Ocean's 9. They're, you know, like when they do that stuff with like, hey, a female version of Ghostbusters, they're going to do like the black version of like hey, this is the black version of Titanic. We have the black Avatar. Like they're going to OD it.
DC's gonna announce a Static Shock movie. Cyborg is gonna get his movie's gonna come out real soon.
Netflix is gonna announce a Static Shock property. Trust me, it's gonna go like that. You're gonna see, oh wow, Get Down has been renewed for 3 more seasons. After that, show lost him so much money, everybody's gonna OD. So and that's not a bad thing for me, but some of those are gonna be mistakes. So let's get into our number one. I wouldn't be surprised if our number one is the same.
It's the same.
All right. Yep. Avengers Infinity War. Is that your... All right. So let's just talk about this thing. Best trailer I've seen in a long time, and I'm hoping they deliver on the actual movie.
Yeah, same here. My only fear is like it's not like the Matrix Reloaded situation. Like I always felt like you could just tell like they were just like, okay, with this movie we just got to prepare for part 3. You know what I'm saying? Like I hope Infinity War, like... You know, because I guess they originally announced it was supposed to be Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2. But then it was like, nah, we're changing it. You're going to change the title for the second one. So I was like, okay, that's a good sign. At least like they acknowledge at the same time, like, okay, we're going to set up the last one, but we really want this one to be its own standalone, which I'm hoping that's what they do. Like, I really want them to not hold back.
Have they ever done that before? You build up. Have you ever known... I'm not going to say Disney because I would have to think about some of their other properties, but have you ever known Marvel to start baiting? Like I call that like franchise baiting. Like you're already setting up your universe before the wheels are actually in motion. I've never seen them do that before. Like whenever they start teasing too much towards a bigger picture, it's always in an after credit scene because you could point back to Iron Man. But the movie Iron Man never suffered. And by the way, I take it back because Iron Man 2 was like that. That's the only time that's ever happened. My bad. I was going down the list in my head like, they've never done that. I'm just like, Iron Man didn't do it. Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2 did that. I think they've learned their lesson. One thing that they've been building up to, though, this guy Thanos. They've been building up to Thanos for 6 years now. And this could easily become an example of the best execution of all time when it comes to a villain, or it could fall flat just like Disney did with Snoke. So I'm hoping that's not the case. You don't get an actor like Josh Brolin. Let me stop because he be in bad movies too. All right. Yeah, let me stop that. I take that back. But I think they're going to set him up nice in this movie. And I think this is going to be one of the best depictions of a villain in a long time, and I think it's going to make the phase 1 and phase 2 much more rewatchable if it isn't already, because people are going to be like, that's that dude, that's that crazy dude that we end up meeting in Avengers Infinity Wars 1, and he's just so crazy and he's living up to the hype. So when you watch Avengers, it's going to speak volume, because that's the same thing with the Emperor in Star Wars. Like you're watching episode 4 and you don't know why. You're watching episode 4, 5. You don't know why Darth Vader takes directions from that guy. Like just beat him up, Darth. Like you're stronger than him. He looks weak. But then in episode 6, you're like, okay, he's that deal. Like he's actually pretty, legit. So I think the same situation is going to happen with Thanos. Yeah,
same here. And it's just like you said, and it's kind of a emotional type thing, because it's like this is like 10 plus years strong building all these characters, and it's just like it's the end, because you're coming at that point where okay, it's probably gonna be time to reboot some of these, you know what I'm saying? Like outside of maybe Spider-Man, Black Panther, I'm trying to think who else could probably translate into the next phase, but a lot of these guys don't got nothing
to do. I think a lot of these people are going to be here as long as we need them to be here. Like, in my opinion, that's me.
So
this fate.
So you think Chris Evans is gonna be Captain America in his 40s? You think? I don't know. Like even
Tom Brady's the starting quarterback of the New England Patriots in his 40s.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, 40 doesn't look like 40 anymore. You could do a lot with CGI. So I just don't. And I mean, if Logan showed us anything, people will get fit if you're paying them anywhere north of $4 million to $10 million to do a movie.
Yeah.
So I think, and you also get Avengers and the Guardians of the Galaxy all on the same screen at the same time. This is going to be amazing. This is my number one. It's no question. But back to your point about them rebooting, I think this is going to be a situation kind of like Star Wars. Like they're money maker for these films. These movies, all of them are like $1 billion properties now. Like all of these characters, right? But a majority, I don't care. Even if you bring up Age of Ultron, if you bring up Avengers, their best selling movies of all time. The secret is the merchandise. That's how they make money off of this. Like, to give you a picture, before episode 1 through 3, Star Wars had been like a $7 billion franchise. And they made $14 billion from the toys. If you guys see the toys that made us on Netflix, it's a nice documentary thing. So, and I've always known that, like, the secret is you get the rights to the toys. And that's why they forked up all that money to pay George Lucas. It's like, nah, we're going to sell this at our Disney, theme park locations. We're going to sell this at online on Amazon. We're going to sell this at Toys R Us, etc. So this is like, they could go a while without making these films. They don't have to make these films. Like, they got the animated series and everything. I think they're going to make a series of films, and then when people are sick of it, they're just going to take a break. And then they'll wait like 10 years to reboot this baby. So, and you could do so much stuff with spinoffs and stuff. Iron Man is going to be Iron Man till this guy can't do it anymore. Like, people don't turn down money like that because they're tired. Like, that's the only way Chris Evans will walk away from this. Scarlett Johansson will walk away from this. It's like, I'm just tired of doing the role. Like, everyone's tired. Like, do you like going to work every day? Like, every person I talk to that goes to work every day says, I really don't feel like going to work today. They still go because money is a difficult incentive to turn down.
Yeah, because just to piggyback on what you're saying, because I remember Jennifer Lawrence was like, yeah, I hate doing Mystique. I hate the makeup. Boom, she was in part 2.
Dark Phoenix.
I hate the makeup. I hate doing it. Blah, blah, blah. Now she's in Dark Phoenix, like you said.
Yeah, she learned her lesson. She had those 2 movies that flopped, and it's like, ain't nobody paying you for those movies. Those movies they're not you need a franchise under your belt. Like, people search their whole career looking for franchises to be part of. Like, Samuel L. Jackson's situation is not like everyone else's situation. There's other good actors in Hollywood that have always clinged to the wrong franchise. Carl Weathers. Carl Weathers left Rocky because he wanted to go do Action Jackson.
Sure.
And
mistake.
Exactly. And by the time he came back to Rocky, you're like, we killing off your character, bro. All right, I'll find another franchise. He's been looking ever since. So, nah, man. I'm looking forward to this movie, and I think I'll be able to look forward to other Marvel properties with these same faces. So they're not fooling anybody with that. So, any honorable mentions before we go?
Deadpool 2.
Yeah, I know that's going to be on a lot of people's list. I don't have that as my most anticipated.
Yeah, me either. But just gotta see what they could do with it. The first one's a hit. I have another one, The Nun. Like, it's like you said, like with horror, like I really could be a huge year for them. You
don't got any Star Wars on your stuff? You don't that
nah, bruh. That
Solo movie is gonna
too much, man. Too much.
But I'm actually looking forward to see what they do with Jurassic World. But if it's bad, I won't be surprised. But if it's good, I won't be surprised. Just because that movie snuck up on people with the box office. So I think now people actually want to see monster giant movies. Venom comes out this year as well.
Yeah, and I like what they're putting out so far. Just with like the little pictures and the hints. And Tom Hardy's a beast. So
no, when Marvel name not attached, Sony.
It's just. I get what you're saying, but at least even like in a bad movie with Tom Hardy, it's like you could he always brings something. You know what I'm saying? Like he always goes 110%. So it's just like if they let him, you know, dominate the screen, like it should be okay. Like we'll see.
Yeah, all right. Did you ever see the This Means War?
Come on, bruh. That was
Now you acting like it's impossible for him to make a bad movie. I'm just saying.
I didn't say that. I said even in a bad movie, he's still pretty good.
So that's a yes. You did see This Means War.
Yes, I seen This Means War.
Okay, I'm just saying, man. Sometimes it's out of your control. And I'll put on there another movie that another thing I'll say about Venom. It's not that I don't believe in Venom. It's just Sony.
Nah, Sony's terrible. They're horrible.
Not just with movies though. What they're doing with record labels, what they're doing with freaking
everything.
Everything. Like even, I mean, when's the last time you used your Walkman? Those guys were supposed to dominate that iPod type market, like MP3 players. And it's stuff like, I don't know who runs that organization. The only thing that they were good at when they had sexual harassment, they were one of the first people with a sexual harassment scandal. And they swept that junk under the rug to where nobody talks about it. Everybody else got in trouble. Like Weinsteins are losing their company. Sony, they just swept that stuff under the rug. Because L.A. Reid stuff, their PR was all over it. And he was gone. And that stuff wasn't trending. So that's the only thing that they're good at is covering up mistakes. And that's because of their experience from the email leak.
And don't forget the PlayStation. And which is funny because they had to deal with a lot of adversity with that too, but then they were able to overcome it. You know, actually, you know, compete and actually beat Xbox a few times. So it's funny because outside of that, like you said, because I remember growing up, that's all I used to buy was Sony Walkmans. They dominated the market. Then boom, they let Apple take over. With movies,
I used to be a Sony loyalist like that. I actually, like when you look for brand stuff, like people are loyal to certain brands.
Same
I was
here.
loyal to Sony, and I always, it was PS over Xbox, but
Same
I'm not
here.
going to say they win in that because the way that the gaming industry, we could talk about that another time, but that stuff's so upside down. I don't really see the need for consoles anymore, but that's the way they make money, so they keep pumping out new stuff, and it's robbery. But they're losing to the little Nintendo thing that they just came
Switch.
out with, the little handheld thing. So yeah, even in their successes, they're losing. But all in all, like I'm cautiously looking forward to Venom, but there's obviously some stuff that we left off this list. Anxious to hear what you guys think. What are your top 5 most anticipated films for 2018? Is there anything on our list that you guys just totally disagree with? Let us know. Be polite as you can. If you're not, it's fine too. But anxious to hear your top 5. Go ahead and share that with us in the comment section on YouTube or hit us up on Facebook and let us know what you think. So all in all, guys, it's about that time. Thanks for joining us today. Before you leave, if you like what you heard, share it with a friend on Apple Podcasts or wherever you go for your podcast. Don't let this be the last time we hear from you or you hear from us. Support the show and become a sponsor by visiting our Patreon at www.patreon.com/CouchTomatoFilms. Join us next week and check the show notes on where to find us weekly. It's Couch Tomato Films on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and Couch Tomato Film on Twitter. Other than that, peace.